Voices Extra this Saturday morning on ENUGU's 92.5 Dream FM. My name is Ike Ekweremadu.
My name is Ezinani. Thank you for joining us. Happy New Month.
Right, thank you very much indeed for joining us this Saturday. We've been joined by the Deputy President of the Nigerian Senate as he joins Political Voices Extra. Distinguished Senator Ike Ekweremadu joins Political Voices Extra this Saturday. Distinguished Senator Ike Ekweremadu, many thanks to you, sir, for joining us.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
All right,
Good morning.
all right, sir. Your Excellency, you've been in the Senate for a record 4 terms, yes, beginning from 2003 to this moment, 2019. Why are you still working to return to the Senate again?
Well, thank you. I believe it's a desire to continue to serve my people. Sometime in 2018, when I called the stakeholders in ENUGU West and indicated my intention to retire from the Senate, they objected to it and said I should go and think about it. Before I could finish thinking about it, they came up during the sale of forms to buy from the PDP for me, and they came in their numbers to give me the form and urged me to go back to the Senate. And I believe that it will be worth the while to oblige them, and I did exactly that. So since my people still want me to continue to serve them, I have no option than to continue to do that.
Well, as a follow-up to that question, Your Excellency, some think that you should perhaps step aside for the younger ones to take up that leadership position, considering the fact that the Not Too Young to Run bill was signed last year. Precisely those talks even came on our platform, Political Voices, people thinking that you have served the 4th time and this is the 5th time you're going out there to also canvass for votes and get support to go back to the Senate. What are your thoughts?
Well, you see, the issue of the Not Too Young to Run, I believe those who pushed it will tell you that I contributed heavily in making sure that it passed the legislative process, and they've come to thank me for that. Now, but you see, in every political setup, there are institutions, that should maintain certain standards. If you look at the Not Too Young to Run bill, which was an amendment to the Constitution, the particular one we did not reduce was the age for the Senate. It was not reduced because it's not just the upper chambers, it's the stabilizing force for the country. It plays a major strategic role, so it's not for beginners. So we had to reduce the president from 40 to 35, but we don't tamper with the Senate. We reduced the one for governors, House of Assembly, House of Reps, but we didn't tamper with the Senate. So because at that level, the Senate is kind of a balancing institution. And that is why every state of the Federation have equal number of senators. It's not the same to the House of Representatives, it's not the same to the House of Assembly. So it's a strategic institution which we believe should be able to be populated by those who have some kind of experience and some people who have established themselves and those who are patriotic, those who are nationalists. So it's a very unique institution. So I believe that we are getting there in the sense of our young people. So if they start from the House of Assembly and get to the House of Reps, and plus by the time they get to the Senate, I'm sure they've gathered enough experience.
Okay, you've also been the Deputy President of the Nigerian Senate for 3 consecutive times, and it became a surprise to many, especially at the point you emerged as a Deputy Senate President at the inception of this administration, 2015 precisely. You are perhaps in the class of what people would call the Maradona of politics. What is the secret? How did you come about that?
Well, I think it's just the grace of God. And somehow my colleagues do have some level of confidence in the work I do for the Senate. So for which I'm very, very grateful. Any of us could do that job, but because I believe there is the grace of God upon my life, and my colleagues believe that I try as much as possible to put in my best in the assignment they've given me as Deputy Senate President, and then they've continued to sustain me in that position. So I think those are just the basic principles.
Very well then.
All right, Political Voices Extra been joined by distinguished Senator Ike Ekweremadu. Your Excellency, let me ask you this very quickly. As a highly ranked member of the National Assembly, led us into some of the functions of the legislature and how it operates. A lot of people are beginning to feel that the executive arm seem to be undermining the legislature. For instance, the case of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the EFCC boss, which the Senate did not approve, his appointment, and many others will highly come to mind, Your Excellency.
Well, is the character of politics in the third world.
Right.
We find it extremely disturbing, that instead of making progress, we are taking one step forward and maybe some few steps backwards. That's the problem. We've had years of military regime, and when we have military regime, the usual casualty is the parliament. So you usually have the executive in place and then the judiciary in place. So when we came back, to democracy in 1999, so it was like a learning process for us all over again. So the parliament started growing. So steadily there have been a lot of setbacks, especially with the interference of the executive in the work we do at the parliament. And but I must commend the National Assembly for resisting all those efforts. So what we've been able to achieve as a parliament today is that nobody imposes leadership on us. Today we elect our own leadership. The Senate President, the Deputy Senate President, the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker are usually elected by the members without any interference, imposition by the executive or the so-called godfathers. That we've been able to achieve. And I'm happy to say that over the years now, we've been able to see a number of people, standing tall in the National Assembly to defend democracy. We've done it before, and we'll continue to do that. And I believe that the challenges we have today, we're definitely going to overcome them. In the EFCC matter, of course, we insisted that the confirmation of the Senate is needed for the chairman of the EFCC. Like all other oppositions, which the Constitution requires confirmation of the Senate. Our position is that we require those the confirmation before you can even commence the work. For me, that is the position. And but if the executive thinks otherwise, I'm sure history will eventually vindicate us. The same thing with the issue of the CJ, present CJN problem. For us, we also believe that it is only the National Assembly, indeed the Senate, that can commence the process of removing the Chief Justice of Nigeria through a two-third vote of the Senate, praying the President to remove the CJN. Anything short of that is unacceptable. On the issue of the suspension, of course, if you look at the workings of the National Judicial Council, it's only the National Judicial Council that can suspend the judicial officer, and not any person in the executive. And of course, there's a judicial decision on that. So mistakes, I believe, have been made. But unfortunately, the country is suffering, and the integrity of the judiciary is at stake. So it's very worrisome. I just do hope that by the 11th of February, when the DSC will reconvene, they'll be able to resolve this to the admiration of all Nigerians. It is important that this be resolved before the election. I do hope that they'll resolve it.
Okay, let's also follow up on this issue of the CJN. It was in the news that the Senate of the National Assembly was to reconvene even though you were already on a recess on Tuesday. However, we didn't see that happen. What is the response of the National Assembly, seeing that the powers, it seems like your powers were stifled in the process of suspending the CJN?
Well, we figure that it doesn't make sense to continue to lead the system. And remember that the judiciary is a very sensitive institution. So going to sit at the floor of the Senate and start rigorous debate on it may even worsen the situation. So the leadership now met and said, well, the best thing to do is let us submit our position to the judicial process for interpretation. And so we took it to the Supreme Court for what we call case stated. Let the Supreme Court decide. The President was right in what he did. And what is the position of the Senate in the process of removing the Chief Justice of Nigeria. So that matter is already before the Supreme Court, and I believe that shortly they will be able to take care of it. And so between that and the effort of the NJC, we'll be able to restore hope and confidence in our judiciary, and because it's critical that Nigerians continue to have confidence in the judiciary.
All right, Your Excellency. You have been serving in different capacities in Nigeria, even beyond on the continent level. You've been the deputy and the speaker of ECOWAS Parliament. Now the question is, what were your experiences like, and to what extent were you able to further promote integration in the sub-region and strengthen the lawmaking powers of the regional parliament?
Well, thank you so much. When I got into the Senate, my colleagues graciously elected me to the ECOWAS Parliament. First, as I remember, in the year 2004, I believe. And then thereafter, in 2007, I became the Deputy Speaker of that Parliament. And subsequently, in 2011, I was elected the Speaker of that Parliament. I met a Parliament without lawmaking powers. We just go there to talk, debate, and then we go. And then the sub-region pays stipends in dollars to all our colleagues. And for me, that is not the best way to go. So we decided, following the example of other regional parliaments, including the EU, to see if we can get some legislative powers for the parliament. So we started a process of what we call the enhancement of the powers of the parliament, the ECOWAS Parliament. I took a tour to the EU Parliament and met with a number of my colleagues there. Martin Schulz from Germany, he was the Speaker of the EU Parliament at the time. So we had a number of discussions. They supported us. We brought experts from different places. We studied what happened in other parts of the world. And then we came up with a legislative list for which we can make laws, including the budget process and confirmation of certain appointments within the sub-region. So by grace of God, we were able to push it through during my tenure as a parliament, as a Speaker of the Parliament. And the heads of state graciously approved it. And today it is part and parcel of the protocols of the ECOWAS. So I'm happy that we're able to do that. And it was also a learning process for me as well.
Okay.
To be able to compare what we do here and what we do others. And I used the opportunity to use my position as the Deputy Senate President as well, to also promote the networking, also promote the education, and the capacity of my colleagues in the sub-region using the National Institute of Legislative Studies, which at that time I was also the chairman of the council. So we help them with training programs abroad in major institutions, including Harvard, Oxford, and Cambridge. And so we made a lot of friends. We compared what we are doing with what's happening in other places. We observed the elections, and we came back with our experiences and to help us to also remodel our electoral process. We remember that the amendments we made to the Constitution and the Electoral Act in 2010 yielded the best possible result in the outcome of the 2011 election. So I think it was a very rewarding experience for me.
All right.
Distinguished Senator Ike Ekweremadu, let's ask you this. What are in the highlights of the last constitution amendment, especially as pertains to the electoral reform, independence of the legislature, and building of a better society?
Well, thank you. Because of the experience we had with President Goodluck Jonathan, when we came up with a number of amendments to the Constitution, they were successfully passed through the Senate, the House of Representatives, and down to the state assemblies. A whole lot of amendments took place. What we call today as the issue of restructuring was completely and exhaustively dealt with in that amendment. We did what we call devolution of powers, moved a number of positions from the exclusive list to the concurrent list, including aviation, and so many other things. Regrettably, the president retired his asset, and it was very sad to all of us. So when we came back this time, we decided to learn from what happened in that last effort, because it was just one package. So when the president refused to sign them, even the ones himself agreed with us, all of them went down the drain. So this time we decided to partition the amendments, into some.
You call it incremental approach.
Yes, incremental approach. Yeah.
Okay.
So now we now decided there are some. Let me maybe focus on the ones that have to do with the electoral process. One of the major amendments we made regarding the electoral reform is the issue of the timeline within which to conclude pre-election matters. In 2010, we did the election petition issues. Before that, election matters takes 3, 4, 5 years. There was an instance, when I came into the Senate in 2003, I had a colleague of mine from Port Harcourt, from River State. He had an election petition, and the election petition was not concluded before he ran again in 2003. He came in 1999. And so we were in the Senate, I think about 2004, the matter was eventually settled. And the court held that he did not win the first election. Meanwhile, he had concluded the term, and then had been elected a second term. So with that experience, we said, no, this is not very embarrassing. So we decided to put time frames within which to conclude election matters. Namely, once election is done with, we must file election petition within 14 days. And then the election petition tribunal will have 180 days to conclude the election petition. And if there's any appeal there, so they want to conclude it within 60 days. So this initially was difficult for the judiciary to cope with, but they came up with a number of processes that helped them to adjust. And now they are really used to it. So that worked for us. So, but we now discovered that the major challenge now becomes the issue of the pre-election matters, that is party primaries. Some of them are still in court, as I speak to the one 2015. So in this 2017 amendment, so what we did was to copy for what we did with the election matters. So as I speak with you, if you have any pre-election matter, and fortunately it's one of the ones President graciously signed. So as I speak to you today, there are timelines within which you must conclude pre-election matters. So if there's any problem with that, you are validly nominated, whether your party, you are the actual candidate for the party, whether INEC did not observe the primaries, or the party did not follow the correct guidelines of the INEC. These matters are what we call pre-election matters. So they must be concluded within 180 days of filing, and you must file it within 14 days of the occurrence of that event, of that complaint. So that's one of the ones. But the other related issues, which I must highlight here, we also discovered, if you look at the number of political parties participating, I think they have participated about 90 of them.
91 we
91,
have.
okay. So it's not going to happen after this because of that amendment. The law now is that if you field a candidate for presidential election and you're unable to win 25% in any state, that's the end of your party.
Okay.
If you field people for senatorial election and you're unable to win one Senate seat, that's the end of that party. If you field people for House of Reps and then you're unable to win one seat, that's the end of the party. If you now go and attempt local government election in any state and you don't win one council, that's the end of your party. So, because of this, in 2022, we're going to have a smaller number of parties participating, and that will help in the process.
Very well then. You're listening to Political Voices Extra on 92.5 ENUGU Stream FM. Are you wishing
Yes, you've just been joined in this edition this Saturday morning by distinguished Senator Ike Ekweremadu, CFR, Deputy President of the Nigerian Senate.
You can join the conversation. We have the Deputy Senate President, Senator Ike Ekweremadu, in the studio with us on Political Voices Extra. 090200202925. Join the conversation on the Facebook page as well, 925 Dream FM. You can send us a message on our WhatsApp line, 0902002029.
You can also dial 0809 8888. Yes, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm so excited to talk to my... Yes, I'm going to put the brother.
Right.
My senator, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
First of all, before I make my decision, I just want to let you know that you are one of my mentors, somebody that I look up to.
Thank
And
you.
I pray that God will bless you for the good job that you are doing for
Amen.
Nigerian as a whole, not even years ago.
Thank you.
My concerns are these. I see many governors taking it's like becoming Senate becoming a retirement home for some past governors. And I want to ask, some of these governors who have committed so many jobs in their state, and by the time you know it, after the finish of 8 years tenure, they move to the Senate, and nobody will stop them again. What is the Senate trying to do about it? Then I want to say this. Election is being conducted before my INEC and across the 774 local governments in Nigeria. But today, what we have is just that state independent electoral commission. And today, the governors who see themselves as a small god in their state. Many of them they don't want to conduct the local government election again. And when the local government elections are not conducted, they cannot have also councillors.
So they find it very difficult to cope with the rigors of the legislative process. Some of them are quite impatient, and sometimes they find it difficult to come and sit from morning till evening, discussing with their peers and debating with those, some of them they consider as their former commissioners. So it used to be a very difficult issue for us. But I must also say that there are a number of them who actually blended easily and have been attending the Senate sittings and also contributed meaningfully, and then they also get along with so many people. But one thing is clear, the fact that you're a senator does not confer any immunity on you. So if you have issues regarding your term as governor, it does not stop the law enforcement agencies from coming after you. So it doesn't confer any immunity on anybody. So that's no problem. So, but as I said, we always have the good ones, we also have the bad ones. So, but I must confess, there are a number of them who have done extremely well, as former governors when they come into the Senate. So I think it's something we all need to encourage if some of them will be able to commit themselves to the work of the parliament, because they are coming with a lot of experience. Now, the other issue you raised is the issue of the state electoral body. Well, in the course of this last amendment, we tried to deal with it. We believe that one way to strengthen the local government administration in various states, first is to make them sufficiently independent. We had a whole portion of that amendment devoted to local government administration. These include the process of electing councillors and local government chairmen. And we insisted in that law that, look, if you're a local government chairman in any process outside the election, that local government will not receive the federal allocation. We are clear on that. We came up with a number of issues that we believe that can help to strengthen the local government administration. Unfortunately, of course, we expected it. They were blocked at state level. And because if you are amending the Constitution, in addition to the two-thirds votes required in the Senate and the House, you also need to go to the states. And you must get 1/3 of votes of 2/3 of the states, which is 24 states, to have. So because this now affects the funds of the various local governments, which most governors are in control of, so they were able to persuade the state assemblies to block that particular amendment. In some states, they have not even voted on it, so it's waiting, so it's not clearly. So some states are still waiting. As of
2018, we had 12 states that voted,
yeah.
9 in favor,
yes.
3 against.
Exactly. So some states have not voted anyway. So we're hoping that if with some pressure from the public and the media and the civil society, we can get that through.
Your Excellency, do you think the legislature has what it takes to also mount pressure? I'm asking because...
There are no more many items my friend raised about the killings across the country.
Okay.
You see, I've been an advocate of what I call a decentralized policing, some call it state police.
Yes.
As long as we've not been able to adequately address the issue of the security infrastructure of our country and the security architecture of our country, we're going to have a problem. A situation where we have a federal system of government and then we're running a unitary type of police, we're going to continue to have challenges with our security situation. And that's exactly what is happening in Nigeria. There's no place in the world we are doing what we are doing here. No federal system in Nigeria is running the type of policing we are running here. Every federal system runs a federal type of policing. That means that in addition to the police at the national level, there are other levels of policing. You must have police at the state and sometimes at local government, if you have an established local government. Institutions also will have their own police, including universities. So the implication therefore is that at each level, you have a number of law enforcement agencies, you know, those who are preventing crimes as well. And then if, for instance, ENUGU state have security challenge, they have to put more money in security. And the way to do that is to hire more police people. And these police people, they are now residing with the people. So if, for instance, you are a policeman in Owan, and then you live in a dozen, you're going to stay there for the rest of your life. So the implication therefore is that you're going to know everybody that comes into a dozen school. So you know when a foreign person is coming in and when somebody is living there. So with that, you'll be able to monitor movement of people. So and some people have said, oh wow, it's going to be abused by the governor. They're using to harass their political opponents. The question is, now, is this not being abused now by some people? It is. What we failed to do is to put in place measures to make sure that nobody abuses it. And remember, as I said, other countries have decentralized policy. So we ask ourselves, how come they are not being abused in those countries? The reason is that they'll be able to put in place measures that make it impossible to abuse it. If you go to a place like Brazil, they have the type of thing I'm advocating here in Nigeria. But what they've done to avoid abuse is to set up like a police service commission that regulates the conduct of those police at various states. So that if you abuse it, then they'll come after you. Just as we have the NJC in the case of the judiciary. So we ask ourselves, how come? In spite of the fact that we have state judiciary, we have judges appointed by state governor, nobody has complained that governors are using the judges to harass them. The simple thing that people innovatively created Nigerian Judicial Council that use their position to make sure that nobody is a state judge. And if you do anything wrong as a state judge, you must submit yourself to the NJC. They can either remove you, suspend you, or even submit you to the law enforcement agency for trial. So if we put all those measures in place and have a decentralized policing, Borno, for instance, will need more police, and they don't need anybody to come and help them. So all they need is to increase the number of police they have. They can recruit from other parts of the country and then make them as part and parcel of the Borno police service. So that's what will happen. And it's a situation where you're an Igbo man, and then you are now posted as a policeman to Sokoto. You don't understand the language, you don't know what happens there. The likelihood that you will not function well. So that is the purpose of our security. So these killings will continue unless we are able to address the type of police we have in our system.
Your Excellency, you sponsored a bill to that effect last year.
Yes,
and
yes.
So the question is, where is that bill at the moment, and how possible is it for the 8th National Assembly to finish up with that bill before
we can? What we are doing is part of the things, the advocacy we are doing now. We want our people to understand the benefit of decentralizing our police system. Because unless they understand it, some people will make sure that it doesn't happen. Because there are some of our colleagues in the north, they believe that if they do that, now they don't have the money to be able to have their own policy. My answer to that is that you don't have to set it up. Those who can afford it will do that. If Rivers State can afford it and Lagos can afford it, what will happen is that Rivers and Lagos will be more secured. Now, the federal government will take a chunk of the federal police from out of these two states and move them to those who cannot. So in Canada, for instance, when they do have the type of policing we're looking at now, it's a federal system. What has happened, some of the states, they have state police, and those who can't, the federal state continue to provide police for them. The same thing to Australia. So that's why people move from here to go to those places, because they are secured. You know, so we can do what they're doing in those places, and they will also be secured.
Distinguished Senator, just before we move on, one of the biggest, strongest fears also as regards the issue of state policing at the moment is the fear that state executives, governors, could also, strongly abuse, state policing, especially at political moments like this.
Well, I've said that, see, in 1966, prior to 1966, we had regional police. So it's not as if we're trying to bring in something new. We've had it. And that's why we're talking about restructuring, trying to do those things that have done in the past that helped us. That's what restructuring is all about. So prior to 1966, we had regional police, we had the even native authority police, and we had they had their own prisons. And that was why, at that time, crime rate was at its lowest. So now, it was abused at some point, because they didn't put in place measures that could checkmate the chief executives of various regions. So when the military came, instead of providing an answer, a solution to those abuses, they simply abolished the regional police. The university came and set up a committee to look at the abuse of those regional police. By the time the committee submitted their report, it had already been removed. So Gowon came, and then the report was submitted to Gowon's administration. They now met and now decided to adopt that and scrap the police. And that's how the issue of armed robbery started, kidnapping came, now terrorism, and it's going to get worse. So to go and do the correct thing. So what we are saying essentially is that we need to put in place measures that will make sure that it is impossible to abuse. Remember too that no condition is permanent. If you're a governor and you set up a police force and decide to abuse it, after 8 years you will exit. Obasanjo set up ICPC and EFCC. When at the time when his daughter was with us in the Senate, I believe in the 6th Senate, she was arrested by the EFCC. So and today they also threatening Obasanjo. So no condition is permanent. So if you set to abuse it, just wait after some time, you'll be out of power, and then they will come after you. So I don't think that should be the fear. But the most important is what to put in place a police service commission that will regulate the operations of the police force, both at the state level and at the federal level. And then they have to be populated by people who can really trust.
Okay.
It's Political Voices Extra on ENUGU's 92.5 Dream FM. We're joined by distinguished Senator Ike Ekweremadu, Deputy President of the Nigerian Senate.
Yes, we'll take more of your contributions on the phone line if you have questions. For the distinguished senator, please call us 0902002092. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, my name is Emmanuel, calling from Osaka.
All right, Emmanuel.
Hello?
Go
Yes,
ahead,
Emmanuel, please go ahead.
Yeah, I want to know what the state is doing to check the powers of Mr. President.
Okay,
All right.
we got your question, Emmanuel.
So I'm here.
Yes. He wants to know what the Senate is doing to check the powers of the President.
Very well then, let's see if we can take more of your contributions on the phone lines 090200209225. On the Facebook page 925 Dream FM, Ekezi Chukura says, "Good morning, distinguished Senator. Sir, there is this palpable fear and possible rumors that Atiku is not getting enough support from PDP stakeholders in the Southeast, including yourself. How do you react to this, sir?" That's from Ekezi Chukura. Let's allow you to answer. You already have two questions. Emmanuel from Isuka first.
Well, the issue of the president, I think, is a constitutional issue. Luckily to us, what we are running is what we call separation of powers. So the constitution put in place measures to put president in check. You know, one of these is the issue of appropriation, because the president cannot spend the public fund without being appropriated. So that's the provision you find in sections 80, 81, 82 of the Constitution. So that regulates the spending of the federation money. Then the second is that there are a number of appointments in which the president must, as a matter of constitutional requirement, submit to the the president or the Senate for confirmation, including ministers, including ambassadors, and heads and members of various commissions. The idea of that is to ensure that presidents do not populate these commissions, these bodies, and these and so the people from one part of the country. So with that, we try to make sure that every part of Nigeria are part and parcel of the administration. But of course, there is the power of impeachment, which is also embedded in the Constitution. It's usually, it's rarely used anyway, but at least it's one thing that is there that could be deployed if it becomes absolutely necessary. And of course, there's oversight function, you know, in which the National Assembly is empowered to also look at the operations of various ministries, departments, and agencies. You know, so there are a number of things that the Constitution put in place. But we must remember that we're running a presidential system of government, and one of the implications of a presidential system of government is that you have a very powerful president, you know, and which what we copied from America. And so, but here in Africa, it's sometimes been abused because in America, where we copy it, we have institutions, strong institutions that put the president in check. We cannot say the same of African countries, and that's why sometimes you see abuse of the presidential system in Africa. You know, so the president wakes up and then he does whatever he likes, because the parliament in most places are very weak. You know, so even the National Assembly, they are turning up to the president, you know, as much as possible. But you can't say the same thing with the National Assembly members at the state. You know, so that is the major problem we have. So that's why we believe that Africa is certainly not right, you know, to have to run presidential system. So some of us are advocating that we may have to look at either the parliamentary system or a hybrid, such as what they have in France, you know, that will be able to put people in parliament from where the ministers can also be appointed, and then everybody sitting in the parliament, and then maybe have a prime minister who is also a parliamentarian. So all of the peers will be in the same place, so you can be looking at yourself every day, and then not somebody starts sitting somewhere and dictating for you. So that's the way we're looking at the issue of how to check the powers of the president. On the issue of Atiku, well, I think it's a misconception. Atiku was in ENUGU yesterday, and he confessed that all the places he had gone to, he didn't receive more support than what he had seen in ENUGU, and including his own state, which is Adamawa. We've gone to Kwara, which is the state of the Director General. I'm sure he confirmed to me and confessed even openly yesterday that what he saw in ENUGU and is much more than what they've done in those states have been to. I mean, it's just mischief for people to be peddling all those rumors. Let me tell you clearly, Atiku is running today because people like us stayed back in PDP. When everybody left, we remained. We reformed the party, made it a party that is today looking forward to the election. So after I was fixed, they all came back. It was my committee that recommended that the president should be zoned back to the north. And that's why I think some of them came from APs to come and run. All the north, everybody had an equal opportunity. But our take is that everybody should go and deliver a state. Go and deliver a central district, their federal constituency, and then their ward. If we do that, then PDP will win. But some people are sitting somewhere in Abuja and then saying that Southeast politicians are not supporting that. Meanwhile, they don't have a home base. They can't deliver one word in their state. We've seen it before. That's how we lost the 2015 election. People who were there criticizing one place or one part of the country or the other, and then instead of going back to their states to go and help each other, they sat there and were making all kinds of noise. At the end of the day, we lost in their various states. Yet we won in the Southeast. So they have started, same people have started the same business of gossiping and telling all kinds of stories. The truth of the matter is that the people concerned what contribution have made to PDP to stay where they are today. And I hope and pray that everything goes well.
All right. You're listening to Political Voices Extra this Saturday on ENUGU's 92.5 Dream FM. We've been joined by the Deputy President of the Nigerian Senate, Senator Ike Ekweremadu. Distinguished Senator, you passed through a lot of hurdles and challenges in this dispensation, from appearing in court for forgery of the Senate rules, blockade of your official residence, to allegations bordering on asset declaration. In all of these, you are seen as the cat with the 9 lives. How did you survive all these allegations?
Well, thank you so much. First of all, I was psychologically ready for all those. Maybe we lost the election. I knew we were in trouble. And I organized a seminar for the PDP elected officials at the time in Port Harcourt. I invited my friends and colleagues from Ghana who had gone through a situation where their party lost the election. So it was an opportunity for us to tell our people what we expect. It was very scary, so myself, I knew it was coming. So as I said, I was ready for it. So I didn't want to bother myself. But what was good and important to me is that my hands were clean. So I didn't have any skeleton in my cupboard. So whatever I bring that appears to be a skeleton, I'll just laugh at you. Because eventually I discovered that there was no skeleton. Maybe it's either a human being or a clothes. So there was nothing to hide. I've lived a very transparent life. I've done exactly what the law wants me to do, all the time in my public life. So I didn't have anything to worry about. So the Senate rule in the first place, nobody can tamper with state rule because it's not something. See, the way the parliament runs is different from the other institutions. It's a collective responsibility kind of. So you can't amend the Senate rule without the consent of your colleagues. You can't just write a Senate rule as an individual. So what happens is that people were acting on so many ignorance, so much ignorance. So they thought that you can just wake up and then you prepare the rules. And what was it that they were complaining about? Now, we came to the Senate in 2015 during the election of the Senate President and Deputy Senate President, and we decided that it's going to be by secret ballot. That's what they call forgery. And as a matter of fact, once you finish a particular parliament, that's the end of the rule. The administration will prepare a new one ahead of those who are coming. It happened in 2003, in 2007, 2011, 2015. Each of these periods will have the rule for that particular period. So we have a 2015 rules, and when we finish, we'll have 2019 that will come as soon as possible. Once the end of this parliament is settled, then the administration and National Assembly will come up with a new House rule and a new Senate rules. Because once you are gone, you are gone. So, and when you arrive to be sworn in, you're not a member at that point. So you can't even object to the rules. You can only object after you've been sworn in. So at that point, they are helpless. So there's nothing a person can do about it. So it is the rule they gave you that will determine how you'll be elected. So in this administration, they came up and said, look, we want a situation where the leadership of the parliament will be elected through a secret ballot. And I don't see anything wrong with that. So that was exactly what happened. So after that, some characters now went to the police and said that we forged the rules that enable us to march so that the people will not know how any person had voted. I mean, that is democracy anyway. So the police went to court, well, through the Attorney General's office and filed action against us. In the first place, nobody asked us, because if they asked us, we would have explained this to them and they would have wasted public fund. Nobody asked us any question, no statement from us, nobody indicted us. They just woke up one day and then put people's name and put them in the court and said they're charging us, invited to court. So when they realized that they've made so many mistakes, that nobody, not even one witness, mentioned our names, they now quickly hired the senior advocate of Nigeria to take over the proceedings. So the senior advocate came and saw the law papers, went through the information they filed, which contains the statement of what the witness, and discovered that nobody mentioned any of our names, as having done anything whatsoever. So he advised the government that they were chasing shadows, and then of course he had to send in his bill. They paid him, withdrew the matter, and on the matter they said they're going to refile up to today. We're waiting for them to refile, but there's nothing to refile. So the other ones, they were coming to my house and Senate President house, blocking us on the road. That's all. There was all just funny processes. So I mean, we were never wanted at any point. So the one for asset declaration is nonsense, because I've declared my assets at all particular time. But what the law wants me is to declare my assets and show the source of my income, and I've done exactly that. So I don't have a problem with that. So I don't have any problem with asset declaration whatsoever. I don't have any hidden asset anywhere. I've challenged any person. If you know any asset that belongs to me, that's not in my asset form, I dash you. Just take it.
Right. Distinguished Senator, would you also admit here that the relationship between the Senate and the executive arm of government have been frosty?
Well, it has to be so, because we have to assert ourselves on behalf of the people of Nigeria. If we eat and drink every day, it's the other people of Nigeria will suffer. So we have to stand for the people and then tell the government that enough is enough sometimes. So that's why it has to be frosty. So if it's rosy, then it is the Nigerian people that will be losing. So it can never be rosy, so it must be frosty. So we know that. That's our job, to make it frosty. So that is what Parliament does everywhere in the world. So we don't have a problem with that. But see, we must always draw a line where national issues are concerned, where the national safety is concerned, where the national security is concerned. So where the integrity of our country is concerned, we must draw a line. That's why sometimes we have to bend over, talk about the executive. We know where to draw the line. But we must stand up for our constitution, because we swore to defend the constitution and then also to be on the side of the people.
All right.
So that line must be drawn.
Your Excellency, you talked earlier about your dedication to the People's Democratic Party, about you staying back to build even when others defected. You stayed back to build when the ships were down, and it was very much recommended in the news.
And I suffer for it.
Yes.
That was why the government came after me.
And that we've seen also in the news, talking about your dedication to the party. Some say you were treated unfairly, unjustly, despite taking bullets for the party. Some other sources are saying that there is a general feeling that you have been sidelined by the party, PDP, after Atiku's emergence as the candidate, presidential candidate. That, of course, that was from last year, after your party had the national convention, that he emerged as the presidential candidate. And it was in the headlines that is Ekweremadu on his way out of PDP? That was a question. People were thinking you were leaving the party.
Well, at some point in 2015, I was the highest elected official in PDP. And to that extent, I was the leader of the party. So today I still remain as one of the leaders of the party. So I cannot come and sit here and start discussing the internal affairs of our party. So I'm doing fine.
Okay, so you have no plans whatsoever to leave the party?
I'm here. I'm running the Senate seat under PDP. So you can't be leaving the party and then we're running an election. How can you reconcile it?
It's Political Voices Extra. Yes, we have joining us live Deputy President of the Nigerian Senate, Senator Ike Ekweremadu, CFR. Distinguished Senator, as the highest political office holder from Igbo extraction, what is your take on certain national questions like restructuring, 6-year single tenure, state police, yes, we've had you speak about this, the Igbo Presidency, etc., etc., most of which we know you've also been canvassing for?
Well, on the issue of restructuring, I'm sure by now everybody's used to that phrase. Now, I would like to dwell on the issue of actualization, not just the concept.
Okay.
Because the concept, I think, is clear in the minds of everybody by now. You know, we're talking about doing things in the correct way, making sure that things that have worked for us in the past, in terms of administration and structures of the federation, will now be brought back to ensure that we have a balanced federation where everybody will be able to be happy, and then development will be even, and everybody will have their dues. So that's that. But I think the major issue and challenge for us is how to actualize this. Now, I've had occasion to speak about this. We have a country where we have various interests. We have interests of the North, we have the interest of the South. Within the South, you have the interest of the Southeast, also the interest of the South-South, and that of the Southwest. So for you to talk about restructuring, and if you mean to actualize it, you must balance all those interests. And the way you can balance this is to engage everybody in some kind of conversation and look, address all their fears. Our brothers in the North are worried about what will be their position if we restructure and we leave the physical process, that's the economy, in the hands of various states. In which case, the oil-producing states, they believe, will take everything, or at least the most of it, and then they are left with nothing. Now, we've not been able to explain to them that it's not going to happen that way. It's not going to happen that way because even if you say, take 100% of your resources, you're talking about the solid mineral, you're also talking about the other mineral, including oil and gas. Now, study has shown that every part of Nigeria, every state, have sufficient solid minerals that can run the economy of that state. So if we now say, let the state control all the minerals, whether solid or liquid, it means therefore that places like Zamfara, Kebbi and all that will be able to man the gold deposits in those places. And gold is the mainstay of most economies in the north, in the south, in the east of Africa. So that means that they are talking about economy of a place like Congo. So that is enough for those places. Now, if you go to the north, other parts of the north, you're going to see coal like Ikodu. So every part of Nigeria is blessed. So this needs to be made clear. So what we need to do therefore is to assure our people. First is that what they are going to devour to the states is not just the liquid mineral, but also the solid ones. And then there must be a pool of resources that will enable each state to develop their own endowment. Secondly, there's what they call equity fund in the structured economy. What they've done in places like Canada is to set up an equity fund so that states that are less endowed can benefit from that fund, so that makes for balanced development, so that each part of the country will have equal level of access to education, healthcare, security, and all that. So that is key. So this education is key. We need to engage our northern brothers on how they will benefit from the structured country. And remember, too, that if things are working in River State, they are not going to employ people from outside River State, including those from Kano. So that's how people move in America to California, from part of America to a place like California, where the economy is bigger than the economy of most countries. That's how it works. And then you can make money, then take it back to your own state, establish something, and everybody begin to enjoy it. So it's a win-win situation for everybody, but we need to educate our people on how this works for everybody. I don't want to take my time, talk all the time doing this, but it's something I can do a full program on this. So let me leave it at that. The other one is 6-year tenure we spoke about. I've been an advocate of a single term for presidents. The idea is that we spend so much money in elections in Nigeria, and we do elections too often. Can't afford that kind of loss. If we do a 6-year term, one is that it's going to rotate easily amongst the federated units of Nigeria, and everybody will feel a sense of belonging. Two, this idea of people using the public funds to run election to get back to the office will now stop, and then the do or die approach will also stop. Now, we've had this kind of conflict, in Latin America, especially in areas like Mexico. So what they did was, in the early part of the 20th century, they now amended their constitution and provided for a 6-year single term. So what they do in Mexico now is that you can only do a single term of 6 years. Now, if you want to come back again as president, then you have to wait for another 6 years to go. So, and this also applies to their parliament. So you do a single term of 6 years, for instance, in the Senate. So if you want to come back, you have to wait for another 6 years, and then you come back. So that can help to stabilize the politics. of our brothers from that part of the world. So these are the advantages I think it will confer on us. So that once you start, it gives you enough time to plan and also to execute your program. But now you start, to build a road before you know it, 4 years is gone, and then you don't complete the road. You say, okay, give me more 4 years to have to complete these roads. So, and some other policies follow the same process. So, but if you have a 6-year term, the first 2 years, you must do all the planning, and the last 4 years, you're able to complete them. And if you're unable to complete, those who are coming after you will be able to follow from what you've been able to put in place. The Igbo Presidency. My attitude to the Igbo Presidency is that in the history of Nigeria, the presidency had been, people had become presidents of Nigeria for a particular ethnic group based on national consensus, based on the mood of the nation at a particular time. So the Igbo Presidency, in my mind, will be actualized at the time when there will be a national consensus on this, when there will be the national mood will be for an Igbo president. And I can predict that that time is 2023. Now, if you look back in history, in 1999, following what happened on the Abiola's election, the mood of the nation at that time was that somebody from Southwest would be the president of Nigeria. And that was why Obasanjo had to emerge as president, in spite of the fact that PDP was formed by people like Ekweremadu. It was the leader of the party, it was everything in the party. But because the national mood at that time was for somebody from Southwest to emerge as the president of Nigeria, that happened. So now, fast forward to 2007. Now, it was the mood of the nation as somebody from the north would be the president of Nigeria. In spite of the effort of people like Odili, with all the resources, the acceptability, now we ended up with a northerner as the president of the country. And that was how Yar'Adua, with little resources, became president of Nigeria. Now, move forward to 2015. When Yar'Adua died, it took the effort of some of us to convince the North that though Jonathan has finished the first the tenure, the unaspired tenure of Yar'Adua, that he should please be given an opportunity to run for the president on his own steam in 2011. So when that happened, the mood of the nation at that time was still that a Northerner will continue to be the president. So that was actualized in 2015. That was basically why the PDP lost the election, because the mood of the nation at that time was for a Northerner to be the president of Nigeria, because they believe that PDP would have given the presidency to the North in the 2015 election. Now that's also why the Northern candidate, the other political party won, not because Buhari was popular, no, it was the mood of the nation. So today, the mood is building up for somebody from the Southeast to be the president of Nigeria in 2003. And I believe that the build-up will even increase in intensity as we approach 2023, because that's what is going to balance our country, as a country where there's justice for everybody.
Your Excellency, as a follow-up, just like you said, 2023 is the time, according to your prediction, for the Southeast to produce a president.
Yes.
Now, there have been debates, even on this platform, on which way to go in terms of, looking at the PDP, the People's Democratic Party, and the presidential candidate. Of course, he has promised restructuring, and we've also seen in the news Ohaneze Ndibo had said they would stand by any candidate who promises to go through with the subject of restructuring. There are criticisms all over the social media and in the news over that endorsement that happened just last week. Yes, and we've also seen some other people arguing, saying perhaps if APC is voted in this forthcoming elections, it would give the Southeast a better chance in 2023, considering the fact that the incumbent president, would finish up his 4-year tenure. There are also arguments, on the other hand, that with PDP, there is an uncertainty if the presidential candidate would be true to just 4-year tenure, and then, of course, hand over to a Southeasterner for that presidency position. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, see, from my analysis, the presidency coming to the Southeast, or somebody from the Southeast extraction being the president, is not dependent on Atiku or Buhari. No, it's beyond them. I said, it's national consensus. With all the resources we had as a party in 2015, the other could not win. So it's as simple as that. Obasanjo wanted to continue in office. When he finished his term in 2003, it didn't work. It didn't work. So it's not a matter of what the president says. So the Southeast, I don't think they'll be looking at what the president says, whether he do 1 term or 2 terms, or whether Buhari is leaving to it. That's not our business. The business here is what does Nigeria want. If the Nigerians want a president from Igbo Restructuring in 2003, it doesn't matter who is the president at the time, who is the incumbent, and whatever he wants to do. No. So I don't think that should be an issue for us. What we need to do is to build sufficient national consensus and national mood that favors somebody from Igbo land to be the president of Nigeria. It doesn't matter to us who the president may be. But I think that I've spoken to a number of my colleagues from across the country. That seems to be their view. So, and I'm sure that as we get into 2023, that there'll be more discussion and conversation on that. A lot of our statesmen are also of the same view. So, but I don't want to bother myself about it. Let us face the election coming in. But as an Igbo man, I'm optimistic that an Igbo man will be president in 2023.
All right. It's Political Voices Extra on ENUGU's Dream FM. We'll be joined by the Deputy President of the Nigerian Senate, distinguished Senator Ike Ekweremadu, CFR. Distinguished Senator, now let's come home to your state. You seem to be, all right, somebody's on the line. Hello, yes, tell us your name. Yes.
Go ahead, please.